Welcome to the Fighter Country Innovation Podcast, where we break down barriers, challenge the status quo, and push forward with a mindset on continuous improvement. I'm Technical Sergeant Daniel Fournier, your host, bringing you genuine conversations with people making a difference on the flight line, in the office, and everywhere in between. Here at Luke Air Force Base, we're doing things differently. We've combined CI2, that's continuous improvement and innovation, with the Spark Cell to create Fighter Country Innovation, where big ideas are transformed from whiteboard ideas to real solutions that create impact. Our mission is simple: find, fix, empower. We believe in grassroots efforts that generate undeniable value, because when airmen take ownership of innovation, change isn't just feasible, it's unstoppable. This podcast also focuses on sharing our experiences as your hub for innovation and learning from you, our audience. Your insights and feedback are vital to our continuous improvement and innovation journey. So let's dive in, share ideas, and evolve together. Everyone, back to the Fighter Country Innovation Podcast. Today, we have a very special guest.
Hi, my name is Joshua Kawasaki. I am a 2 Alpha 3X5, meaning I'm aircraft maintenance, and I'm more specifically advanced fighter integrated aircraft maintenance, meaning I do a lot of the digital and electrical work on the F-35.
That's really cool. And you're in ALS right now, which is Airman Leadership School.
I am.
And some of the things that we're going to be talking about today is, how the ALS prepares you for the rest of your career, and some of the things that you've learned throughout your ALS journey. And you're at the tail end of it right now.
Yeah.
And so, you're about to graduate ALS, but reflecting on everything that you've learned throughout the entire journey in the curriculum, you think the leadership principles studied will really help foster innovation when you go back to your job?
I think that what they've really taught us here is that there's a difference between just doing your job and excelling at your job. And you can't really drive that change with just showing up for your 9 to 5 and doing all that. You really have to put in the effort, not just for yourself, but for the people under you, to really drive change and start a chain of reactions, basically, that you may not see the change instantaneously, but it'll definitely happen down the line.
So you think about the second, third order effects and that are in considerations for decisions.
Yeah, exactly. So going through ALS, this class has really taught us that we are not at the very tip of the spear. We're not at the very highest. We're not making decisions. And I guess tip of the spear is wrong because we are in the front lines. But yeah, we're not the highest up we can be yet. And so in the position we're at, it's really just small changes that'll eventually lead to bigger and better changes down the line.
That's huge. And one of the things that ALS really focuses on is critical thinking. And that's something that everyone goes through critical thinking phases and how they understand it and how they use critical thinking on a day-to-day, be it at work or even in the home life. I think it has influenced you with how you've learned about critical thinking in ALS. It's influenced you and approach and think about how you can improve just your approach itself, say in your specific job.
I'd say the biggest thing I learned about critical thinking is just being open-minded to a problem. And what I mean when I say that is usually what people say is the problem, maybe the direct problem, but is not the bigger problem or the bigger issue. So if someone's having a bad day at work one day, it may just be that one day, but a lot of the times if it happens more than once, there's a bigger issue that needs to be addressed. And I would say learning that in ALS has changed me because I would only see that single issue. And at this point, graduating and learning everything that I've learned is I have to take care of those below me And a lot of the time, those are the ones that struggle the most or have the most issues with adapting and learning the military lifestyle in a sense.
Yeah.
So,
And that's, getting to what's called the root cause.
yeah.
And it's the underlying issue of what is causing that issue, what is actually causing that issue. And so you start going down the road of asking why. Another way to look at it too is instead of saying why, what? You reframe, and instead of saying why is this the case, so saying what is causing this to occur? What is causing this person to do this? What is their mindset? What is their what's going on in their life to cause them to behave this way, think this way, etc.
Yeah.
And yeah,
as well as like there's a lot of people that hear a problem and their first reaction is to look for a solution. And I fall victim to that for sure.
I think we all have.
To where we hear a problem and want to fix it immediately when a lot of issues just need to be talked through. And in that way, it itself can be dealt with instead of finding a totally new solution to an already existing problem.
Yeah. And so in your ALS experience, what does that look like in some of the exercises that you guys have done?
I would say there's been a lot of exercises where people have the skills to complete them. A lot of them are shown through the physical training that we do in the mornings. People mentally believe they can't pick up a certain weight or they can't run a certain distance. But as soon as those people have a following or others to help them out, they realize like, oh, it's not as far as I thought. It's not that difficult to do. I got this, or we got this in a sense.
Yeah, that mental barrier is massive. And would you say that ALS is one of the main things that people should take away from ALS itself is that we don't go about this alone, and that doing things together and with other people and being supportive of one another is what helps drive progress and also eventually also drives innovation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that statement. I believe that this ALS course was solely designed to teach us to stop looking out for ourselves and just ourselves and start supporting others. So that's a completely true statement.
It's certainly, I've been in for almost 19 years, and I can say that when the biggest thing that I recognize is when I see a shift in a person or people, it is when they start serving others and supporting others versus just themselves.
Yes.
That's fantastic. And so thinking about ALS, what parts of ALS, whether through group projects, discussions, or instruction itself, really stood out to you as tools or moments that kind of sparked the innovation mindset? And so that I'll preface with the innovation mindset of being open-minded and like open to new experience and thinking about things or the same thing from multiple different angles, because that's important when approaching really anything from an innovative way, to consider the unconsidered, to consider the things that people don't often think about.
Yeah. I'd say the piece that really stood out to me personally, when it comes to that way of thinking, would be when we learned and discussed what negotiations really are and how to perform negotiations and how it looks on a formal scale, which is usually what you see with lawyers, stuff like that. And then how negotiations are also everyday conversations we have with others. But they really showed us that because we did a formal sit down and we negotiated just anything and everything.
Give me I want to let's dig into this. Yes.
Yeah.
So give me a scenario of a negotiation.
So the formal one that we did was we were two teams of a divorce case, which in itself is a lot more complicated than we made it. So we did the simple version of just splitting assets. And we had one person represent the whole team. And in doing that, I think that person really realized it. It wasn't me. I wish it was. But they realized they can't get everything they want. Like, it's not possible to get everything you want. And that you need to go back, trust your team, talk to your team, and communicate. And in doing so, you may find a just as good solution or get just as much as you want, just in a different way that you didn't see originally. So that formal exercise was, I think, really good for us because we had to talk to each other because things were changing every second.
Interesting exercise. And think about too, with that, the things that we do in life, the outcome that we're looking for isn't the outcome that actually is going to happen, but still get what we want, though. It just may not look like what we originally thought.
Exactly. And I think that outcome is what I was trying to explain earlier with those changes that come years down the line from what we are trying to do now, like those micro changes that we won't see right away.
We don't know what the end picture is going to look like exactly, but we know that because of the decisions that we make to have happen, the effect. What is the effect that for the outcome? Whatever it looks like, we want it to have a specific effect, though.
Yeah,
but that could vary.
And I can guarantee that the classmates I have, like I've been through this class with for the last 5 weeks, we were not the same when we joined. Or even as a class, we were not as cohesive. We were not talking to each other like at all, or barely holding conversations day 1, day 2. And now most of us are graduating, asking each other to hang out on the weekends or outside of work hours because we learned who we are in this class and who each other are, and the ones that like helped each other get through it, which I think is most of us helped each other through
That's
it.
good. And that builds trust.
Yeah.
And that's how you build up a culture of camaraderie and trust. And in ALS, this is amazing to hear because a lot of times people don't know like what the current ALS structure is like. And the people trying to think about what year I went through ALS. That was a while ago. But to see and hear that ALS students are building teamwork in the way that you're explaining it is absolutely fantastic. Because some of the things that we do, like we operate right next to your classrooms, and we offer an innovation ecosystem for people to come in and then explore ideas and everything. And to know that what happens in ALS, it's a transformational experience where you're not the same leaving ALS from when you came in. You're different in a way that you are you're part of a bigger team now.
Yeah.
And you have those team members that you're building that relationship with.
Yeah. I think I'm in a class where before we started, I knew 1 or 2 people, but at the same time, no one in this class is the same job as me. Everyone's different parts of the military. And early on in the class, they have you explain your job and what the mission is, or what's your career field's mission. And they did that for the purpose of, while we're presenting, everyone else is staring at you and you're really uncomfortable. But by the end of the presentation, and you hear about 10, 11 presentations, you realize you all have the same mission at the end of the day. You all do different parts, but you all have the same mission.
Exactly. And what's fantastic about something you said is that you all had different jobs, and you all you work in different parts of the base, do different things.
So what does that mean for the future is that you have now connections. You have a network of people that you can lean on when you have issues, that you can call on someone who is in personnel or in supply or these other various places, security forces. You can ask questions to get answers. And that's how like we build up a innovative culture really in the Air Force, is that we maintain these little nodes of the network, and the relationships that you build within ALS, you keep those alive. And as each person communicates with another person, like in that network, you're maintaining the strength of that innovation ecosystem, because no one, like, great things don't happen in silos. Like, no one person is able to create something successfully alone. There's always people, not a person.
Yeah. I think the greatest asset in a person's career is the people they meet. And like what I mean by that is like you can't do everything alone. Like exactly how you said it. You can't do it alone. And if you are the person that knows the resources or how to get something done quicker, more efficiently, you are the person with power. No matter what rank you are in the military, if someone above you needs help and you can help them and you do help them, I think in that moment they understand like you are competent, you are a good person to have on their team. And that just gives you all the more power to do what you believe is right.
Yeah. It's exercising, the people, we gain these skills throughout life, be it from hobbies or, skills from work. And or as a consequence of work, we gain other skills that we can help out other people. And I do believe it is a moral, let's say, responsibility that if it is known that someone needs help and we have that ability to help, then we ought to do it.
Very true. That's very true.
And the more people that do that, golly, there'll be less headaches, less people needlessly going about and taking more time than that there needs to be to do things on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. Everyone's worried about how long things take, whether it's how long it takes to fix an aircraft personally for my job, or how long it even takes to drive to work and drive home, because that's the one thing people hate wasting is time. So to be able to get something done quicker or easier, like saves time at the end of the day. And that's all people want.
Yeah, and well, I think more than that is they don't want to feel like they wasted time. So they want to feel like their time was utilized appropriately. And if you spend a tremendous amount of time on a maintenance action or processing a whole bunch of paperwork, or getting a project done at work, but it felt like you saw the tangible results from it, and you didn't feel like it was, or not like it was wasted, then you won't have that feeling of waste. It will be, you'll get more of that. Today was a good day because it was full and it was fulfilling.
Yeah. The weirdest thing about this class that I really didn't realize until recently is we are in class from 7, or we're scheduled, I should say, from 7 to 4, where that's like in class, in a seat, listening. And this whole time, I haven't heard someone complain that we're here too long. Why are we here so long? Because everyone's so like into the conversations, and like they enjoy learning what they've been learning or how they've been taught, that the only time they want to go home is if they're sitting around doing nothing. But besides that, if everyone's engaged, then there really are no complaints whatsoever about the time.
Time is a funny thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
if people, he said, if they're bored, if they're not engaged, if people are engaged and they're in, they're actually participating, then time is irrelevant. They're going to enjoy their time, but more than enjoying it, they'll be able to extract out meaning and purpose. And that's one of the things that, really drives, why people serve too, is the meaning and purpose.
Yeah, I think that's something I'm definitely going to be taking back to my workplace, is trying to reinstate people's purpose. And I understand that people join the military for different reasons, and their purpose may not align with the military's purpose or the military's vision, but for them to get through their day, they need some sort of purpose. And so for me going back to the unit, I want to be the person that, I guess, opens people's eyes to why they serve or why they're doing their job, so that they have that purpose. And I think they'll enjoy themselves a whole lot more at work in doing so.
Yeah. When people recognize that connection as to why it is that they do what they do and are able to attach a purpose, and even more so if it's an intrinsically motivated reason, then, if it's something that is part of who they are, whether it's like a family lineage or something that they personally are striving for, then, that's more sustainable too, than something that they're doing it just to either go to school. It's like, well, what's the purpose of going to school? What are you going to use that for? Or is it just to, what is the reason why you're still in if you re-enlisted?
Yeah.
And like, why are you here? People just too often go on their day to day, and they don't ask the question as to why it is that they do what they do. And so they lose track of that purpose. But you're going to go back, and then you're going to remind them. And it doesn't matter what the rank is.
No.
They could be they could be in for 20 years, or they can be fresh out of tech school, and everybody needs to be reminded from either themselves or from another person. Usually it's great to have a reminder from another person as to why it is that they're doing what they do.
Yeah, and like you said, there's that intrinsic motivation to really like push yourself, and then there's the other side as well of an like extrinsic motivation of, like we said before, it's people wanting to be in charge of their time and to not waste their time. And I think short term, that pushes a lot of people to work harder, to work smarter, and to get the job done because they know there's something waiting for them. And I think over time that'll help build that intrinsic. Hope I said that right.
Yeah.
Motivation. To then I won't have to tell them anymore, or I won't have to remind them, and they'll just know already of why they're doing it, or if they're working harder than normal or above standards is like what we say, or what we've learned, that like there will be something good for them at the end of the day.
Yeah. And, I don't know, have you ever watched Simon Sinek's talk on the Golden Circle?
I haven't.
So, Simon said, do you know who he is?
In the sense, I watched a couple of his videos a while back. The main one that stuck with me was about marriage, because at the time I was getting married. But yeah, I've listened to a couple of his things.
Yeah. So Simon said, most people have heard of him to some degree. He has a book called Start With Why, and he talks about the Golden Circle, and how a lot of people, that they know what they do, they know how they do it, but a lot of people they lose track of why they do it. Though it's where why is at the center, and outside of that is how, and then outside of that is what. And on the surface level, it's what you do. And then a little bit deeper is how you do it. But then at the deepest level is why you do it. If people operate from the center, which is the core of the person, of why is it that you're doing what you do, and which is something that you're going to help remind people of. Then that's going to help them connect the dots of how it is that they do what they do, and then what it is that they do. So that it's an easy framework just to have a conversation with someone, and you're like, okay, you know what you do, you know how you do it, but do you remember why you do it?
Yeah. I'll say in the aircraft maintenance world, they make it really easy for you to know what you're doing. You get an instruction manual with pictures. So the what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is laid out right in front of you. But in the same sense of it's easy, it's turned people into zombies where they just turn off their brain and they don't think of how to make things better or why they're doing what they're doing. They just know to go outside, find an airplane, and fix it. And read steps 1 through whatever of how to fix it, but not how to fix it better, how they can manage their time better, how it affects what we're doing at Luke Air Force Base. Like, those are not questions that people think about because their day to day is so easy.
I suppose that's also where people such as yourself who are coming out of ALS, and then you have the opportunity to remind them of like, hey, instead of operating on a day-to-day where you have your set of instructions, you have your jobs you're going to do, you're going to go out there and you're going to work on the aircraft, or you're going to process paperwork, whatever it is that people do. Be more connected, be more in the now, be more present. And naturally what's going to happen is that people will remind their own selves as to the why by just being more present. But that's also too, as a as a future supervisor, that's something that everyone be aware of, is being more present allows you to recognize when someone else is not being present, and then help them become present, and then find out if they need any help, if there's anything going on that is causing them to just be, say, robotic.
Yeah. And I'm going to say this real quick, and it's no way, shape, or form my original thought, but there's always a balance in anything you do. There's how competent you are, and then how you communicate that to other people. And this ALS class is filled with people that have shown they are competent. They know their job well enough to get this far. And now, since we have a good understanding of our job ourselves, we need to learn to communicate that to the future NCOs, the airmen that are under us. And sometimes that communication skill is going to be a reminder to those above us. And it's just a matter of doing so or not, of speaking up and saying what needs to be said to cause that change and innovation.
Yeah, and that's being assertive and doing what's right. And then so it's kind of a reminder to all, especially those who have been around for a while. So the upper leaders in the hierarchy, as to what it is that sometimes needs to be reminded of. And is it people, regardless of rank, are still people.
And I would say for those that have been in the military 18, 19, 20 years, like, and you can vouch or argue this statement if you would like, you probably don't remember what you learned on the first day that you showed up to whatever station or whatever place you were stationed at, but you probably remember who talked to you and how you were treated from that first day.
Yes, and Dale Carnegie, in How to Win Friends and Influence People, he talks about in that book, and I remember this. It's been a number of years since I read it, but I remember this. It's people won't remember what you say, but they will remember how you made them feel.
Yeah.
And that is 100% true. Regardless of how you are, be it if you are a logical person, emotional person, where you fare in on that, everyone feels. And feeling is what secures memories. And memories are a collection of experiences. And that is what people recall.
Yeah. And I can remember my first day, my first supervisor, his name is Austin Hill. And he let me know he doesn't learn very fast. And so he doesn't believe he can teach me much. And in terms of the F-35 and the military, he didn't. He was very correct in that statement. But as a person of how to handle, I guess, the military way of life and how to handle a work-life balance while being in the military, he taught me a ton.
Mm.
And it's all because of his demeanor, how he went about life. It was nothing he said to me at all. It's just who he was and how he expressed his emotions to those around him that I really picked up on. And I want to thank him because I've learned more from that than anything else, I would say, in the past, 5 years being in the military. It's just the way he treated people was just something I've never seen before.
That's incredible. Yeah. And to remember that experience and to have that as such an impact, that's so the power of that. And
Yeah.
so you translate that into how you treat people. And it doesn't matter if it's one of your first troops or someone who's brand new, or even you go into a new shop and someone that's been there for a long time. The way that you treat people will remember how they will recognize you in accordance with how they were treated.
Yeah. So, I mean, being in this class for 5 weeks, I haven't seen the guys at my shop in that time period, or I've seen them once because I stopped by. And I can guarantee it that me going back as a staff sergeant compared to me leaving and coming to this ALS class as a senior airman are going to be two different people. And I don't want people to get the wrong idea of being like, oh, now that he promoted, he has more power. Like, that is not what I mean at all. And I don't want anyone to take it that way. I want him to take it as I do have more of a voice than I think younger, lower enlisted airmen think. And I'm going to use that voice.
That's good. And that's what ALS is designed to do, is to prime you and to change you, to transform you into the supervisor, to step into that supervisory role. And, what comes with that is, the ability, the voice to drive change, to lead others, and to really set that example as to, hey, the ALS experience is a transformative experience. And when you go through there, you'll be able to take everything that you've learned, all of your memories, experiences, and teamwork, and new tools from the different exercises, as the negotiation tactics and everything. That was so it's been a while since I've talked to anyone who's gone through ALS, so the negotiation thing is new to me, and I think that's absolutely fantastic because that is something that a lot of people really, really need to hone in on, is negotiation skills. So you're going to take all this and you're going to go back to work, and I'll ask the question of all of those things, what is something that you are primarily going to focus on for delivering to the people at work, like from your experiences in ALS?
I would say the one like true thing I want to bring back is for NCOs to remember what it truly means to be an NCO in terms of taking care of those below them. Like that is their primary job now. Um, they should know their AFSC job well enough to where they can do both. And so going back, I want to sit down with the rest of the NCOs in my unit and say, hey, why aren't we doing what we've learned? And I don't know how ALS has been in the past, but from what I've learned these last couple weeks is just like eye-opening, like mind-changing, like of how much a supervisor can do for a lower troop, meaning lower ranked troop that they are in charge of. The amount of stuff in terms of awards and recognition that I think people want overall is immense, but nobody remembers it. So that's what I think I'll bring back.
One area where if you see resistance, let's say if you have resistance from the other NCOs and you go to them, say, why aren't we doing what we're supposed to be doing? Why aren't we doing what we've learned to do as NCOs? You say as to resistance to that type of communication.
Think there's anything directly I can do or say to that NCO that's giving pushback, that's kind of fighting me on the idea, but I'm also very much the type of person where I will show you what I'm talking about. And I will not overstep them. They've been in this role and they have their understanding of what the role is, and I may want to change it, but I need to show them what I'm talking about and why I want change before they'll change their mind.
That's good. And really that example is best way to really show people this could be. We live it before, with that first supervisor, the example of how to treat people, and you create that memory of, people remember how they're treated. So when you go on a day-to-day, it is consistency. That is key.
Yeah.
What we do consistently, people remember.
Yeah. And I think there's been so many people that their day-to-day is just like has no thought. Like their day-to-day is they're in such a routine that they are stuck in it. And I think that's why nothing really changes around like in the military life, because there are not a lot of people that think day to day on whether it's Monday through Friday, whether it's a 9 to 5, or sometimes you're doing 10, 12-hour days. Like it's all a routine.
And people get stuck and they become robotic and they don't consider the effect of what that's going to have on their future self.
Yeah. But if you think about changing stuff, which you guys are doing here, if you think about changing stuff every day, or think of one thing you want to change every day, you will probably succeed. You will probably make a change.
And that's all it takes. That's it. That is all that it takes. Started, let's say, my efforts in anything innovation. This was like 2018-ish, where I started asking the question, is this the best that it could be? And the answer is always no, because something could improve. That's every day when I go into work, every single day, I would ask the question. And it mostly to myself is this the best that it could be? But what happens in the back end is your subconscious starts putting together the framework for, it starts looking for ways and creating ways for improvement. And then when you're ready for it, it will be there. Like you will know that something could be improved, and then you'll see the solution, or you'll see rather the pathway for a solution. And when you think about work in that manner, or you think about life in general in that manner, where is this the best that it could be, then opportunities start just presenting themselves at the most opportune time. And I'll get a little neuroscience-y on you for a second. The process of what happens inside the brain is called myelination. When you have thoughts that you have your neurons, you're connecting the neurons together are these little arms, and those are called axons. And there's neurotransmitters and electrical signals that happen in between. But wrapping around that axon arm, is a sheath of myelin. It's a fatty tissue. And the more that you think about something, the more you think things, and the more that you think of processes and of like similar thoughts, the thicker and stronger that myelin sheath gets. And that's the process of called myelination. And during myelination or through myelination, those nodes of networks, they become stronger. And what happens is it protects that axon, and it allows the electrical signal that goes back and forth between all those brain cells to be more efficient. And what then happens is that you build a stronger and stronger network of information. And in the brain, since that becomes more efficient and it becomes stronger and bigger, what you end up doing is you then have a whole framework, a very strong neuronal connection of the best that it could be. Result of what happens from thinking that thought all the time is that the brain starts seeing possibilities, opportunities. And then there it is. When it's ready, you'll see the opportunity.
Yeah. You were speaking, I was thinking a little bit on that, and no one asks questions. Like, as much as you would honestly think on a day to day, no one asks a question besides, what am I going to do that day? What am I going to do? What am I going to wake up and do tomorrow? When it's like, okay, tell me what I'm doing, and now tell me why I'm doing it, right? No one asks that additional question. And I'm just thinking, like, if we sent people into different career fields, would they know what they're doing? Of course not. And I'm sure they would ask questions. And in doing so, would that cause change in those career fields? There's a possibility, but it all starts with that question of, how do I do something? How do I make it better?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Asking, it's curiosity, and it's truly being inquisitive of the whys. So the more that we do that, the more that people will naturally and innately come up with innovative solutions. The things that I just reminded myself of the conversation I had with Tabby, and the Tabby tool and the mic tool came about because they asked questions. Like, why are we doing it this way? Why isn't there a better solution? Because the way that it was done was, well, frankly, unnecessary and absurd. It was cumbersome and time consuming. So questions were asked. And because questions were asked, solutions were formed.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people that do ask themselves questions ask like this one simple question: how do I do it faster? Or how do I do it easier? Because no one wants to waste their energy doing something monotonous, doing something for the 100th time. Like, people want change to make their lives easier, but they don't look deep into that question of, like, how do I make it easier? Or of, like, what can I create, or what process can I shorten or elaborate on for people to understand it better that would make things easier. But in reality, it's what they want. They want things to be easier.
Yeah. And well, that's also human nature in itself, where we want things to be easier. The thing is, though, is that easier comes with competency. The more competent a person gets, the easier something becomes. And so easy doesn't necessarily mean, you're like, there are ways to simplify things and there are ways to make things more efficient, which is generally, I think, what people mean by easier.
Yes, for sure.
And so if we get back the time, so what we're doing is reallocating time instead of spending time on lengthy processes and maintenance actions or paperwork or tasks that have multiple steps. We increase efficiencies and then increase the amount of time that we have available. We can then reallocate that into other developmental stuff where personal and professional development is key. Right now, there's a big shift in the Air Force where we're looking at increasing lethality. There's I just saw a memo that we are going to decrease the number of officers. We are restructuring all the forces in all the services, Air Force, Army, Navy, Marines, all that. There's being a restructuring of a lot of things. So it's even more critical now that people think innovatively. They ask the questions so that we can increase our efficiencies, so we can get back the time that we spent on the inefficient things so that we can develop the inner self. Because if we make a more resilient force, a more innovative force, it then becomes a more lethal force.
Yeah. We've been taught stuff along those lines of soon we will not be doing just one AFSC. We will be proficient in one AFSC, and then we will have a basic understanding of multiple others that work along our own. And with that change, everyone's going to be doing something that they're bad at, that they don't understand quite yet. So being someone that will have to teach others, like guaranteed, I need to start thinking about how to simplify processes so that other people will turn from bad to good, because I don't need perfection right away. I don't need to shove a million thoughts down their mind. I need them to just have a basic grasp so that they're not bad. And I think once people get out of that whole stage of being bad at a sport, a task, whatever, that I think they skyrocket in their improvement.
Yeah, hardly anybody. No one's good at something in the beginning. We have to be okay with being bad or terrible or not good or sucking in the beginning, because it is. We go down and we do something new. Are we good at it? No. There are some people who have very unique, innate talents, but that only gets a person so far because skills are learned. And what's fantastic is that everybody can learn nearly anything. Yeah. And that's. Do you guys learn in ALS about the growth mindset?
Can you elaborate?
So Carol Dweck, she coined the term growth mindset many years ago, and she came out with a book called Mindset: The New Psychology of Success. And there's essentially, you can boil mindsets down, frameworks of thinking, essentially, down into two different ways. There's a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. And the growth mindset, and this is, according to her, is that it is the way of thinking where a person believes that intelligence and innate ability is not static, where a person can grow their intelligence over time through perseverance, grit, and just continuance of belief in the self. Where a fixed mindset is where a person believes that they're born with their certain talents and abilities, and then that is it. That is what they have for life. And to some degree, everyone already believes in both. But if a person is mindful in how they approach the way that they look at something, if they look at it through the lens of a growth mindset, then it is a matter of not yet, where you're not good at something yet. Looking at learning something new through a growth mindset is all things can be learned and done through time and perseverance. And the way that you approach something or the way that you teach something is that you frame it in I understand that this is new and that this may be, a totally new concept and something that you are completely foreign to, and understand that you are not good at this yet. However, through time and perseverance and looking at the task or the learning or whatever it is that you're doing through a growth mindset, that the mind and the brain will create the condition of learning by allowing the person to believe that they can do it, because a fixed mindset creates the belief that no, this is too hard, too difficult, and is generally based on a person's past history of what's called limiting beliefs, where people say, oh, this is just too hard. I've tried to do this, but I've never been successful at it. Why try? I'll just fail. All those things. There's a whole ton of different limiting beliefs that people can have. But essentially, being able to look at things through a growth mindset, you're empowering people and yourself to learn just about anything.
Yeah. So I will say ALS doesn't teach on the growth mindset itself, but instead they go into a almost general theory of you have all these skills and characteristics about like all of us. They are going to enhance it. So everything we've been learning hasn't been new to any of us, because most of us have been in a leadership role or have been in charge in some way, shape, or form. But now we're gaining tools in our tool belt of how to be better at it. So when it comes to teaching the mind, like the literal sense of that, of having our mindset be one that we can do anything, not quite. But we are taught in the sense of that we have everything we need already. They're just making it better. So I don't want to say like that should be something that is part of the curriculum, because it would be great. But I think they're doing what they're doing in the class is different in terms of how they teach us that. And I think they let us, I guess, sculpt and mold the mindset of who we want to be on the individual level.
5 weeks, have a key takeaway for someone who's going into ALS. You tell them to prepare them, to prime them for ALS.
I would probably tell them not to listen to other people, because this class changes every time. I was one of those people that talked to others from previous classes, from the month before I got here to they were in ALS in 2017. And everything they say is different. And talking to my instructors now, the next class will be different. And I think it ruins almost the experience of ALS, because if you know what you're going to learn already, and like you won't enjoy it. It'll almost be boring because you already know what you're going to learn. But to come into a class where you don't know what you're going to learn besides the topic of it, I think brings a little bit of an exciting factor into this class.
Okay, so when you say don't listen to anyone, what you're referring to is what people say about ALS. Kind of set that aside and then allow your experience to be your own, and don't go into it with any predetermined expectations.
Exactly. Don't go in thinking you know everything, because you don't.
And yeah.
I know a lot of people that are like, oh, well, I've been a senior airman for a couple years. I'm basically a supervisor. It's like, no, you're not. Because I thought that too.
Yeah.
And it's just a quick realization, I think, within the first week or two of, man, I don't know what the heck they're talking about at all. And I can definitely tell you everybody's experience will be different based on their classmates. Because right now there are 4 classes, or I should say 4 flights in one big class, and every flight has a different personality, almost like people.
So each flight has its own unique personality, but in each flight, is a culmination of very unique individuals. But that flight, though, has its own, say, living, breathing personality.
Exactly.
But that's only a consequence of how the teamwork and how all the individuals came together from the ALS experience. Because in the beginning, you said that no one really talked to each other that much. And then over the course of time, over the course of the next few weeks, people started really building those relationships. And then that flight personality really came to be.
Yeah. And with there only being 4 instructors for 4 classes, life happens. And your instructor may not be there. He may need to, or she, should or could have something going on with their family. Maybe they just something happened on the way to work, like they had traffic, and you need to go work with another class. I don't think anyone enjoys that, because it took us 3 days for us to start complaining about moving classes, because we already formed our bonds with each other. And it happened. I saw it. We had people come into our class from others, and talking to them, like, I try and be a social butterfly for sure. And talking to them, they're like, this is not the same. We're uncomfortable. We don't like this. We want to go back to our class and have our instructor. And it's only been 3 or 4 days. And it's so crazy to see how fast like groups are formed within this whole ALS experience.
And it was a good experience, though. When the group was formed, it was a good experience, right?
Yeah.
So, but I want to point out something there real quick, is that when you go back to work or you go into any organization, that same effect can happen, where that culture, because essentially that's what it is. Within the first couple of days, you built that flight's culture.
Yeah.
And to the same effect, you can change a culture by creating relationships and building on those relationships based on trust and camaraderie.
Yeah. And I think, I know for a fact most of us in this class have an understanding of the culture at work, wherever they came from. Something we get taught, though, is how to change it, how to almost stand out to the point of people are surprised, so that when we go back, and we do exactly what they've been teaching us, or we bring the experience and the knowledge that we've gained back and stand out, that the recognition will come. And with that recognition comes conversation. And as you've mentioned, conversation causes change, causes those questions,
Yes.
causes people to think and use their brain. And I think that's just a start. So, like, for most of us, saying we can't cause change or we can't cause big change, we don't have to. And I think we realize that now.
No, if you want big change, you start small. You start with yourself, and then you start with who it is you interact with every day.
Yeah. It's like, if I can change the 1 or 2 troops under me to the point of they have their purpose, they're showing others around them just through like nonverbal cues, just their body language, how they walk around, how they talk, communicate to others, then more will follow. And
Yes.
I only need to start with 1 or 2. And then what happens when you have an army? Someone notices. Someone definitely notices. Change within 1 or 2 people may not affect them, but change within 20, 30, 40, that will definitely get recognized.
Yes. And you become known as the person who affects change.
Yeah. Like, how this conversation between you and I started with being the person that people want on their side, being the person that has the resources. So being the person that can cause change will get you recognized and wanted. And I don't think there's a single person out here anywhere that doesn't want someone to help them improve. And if there is someone, I want to meet them because I'm going to change their mind.
Yes. And because everybody needs help. One would benefit accepting help. Going through an experience of ALS here at Luke, say that you are uniquely primed to go back into your work center as a new supervisor with a mindset and effective help people, tech school, or seasoned.
Say that everything I've seen, whether it's CI2, AF Spark, and everything I've learned at ALS was so different that it's just another resource I have. And it almost builds my confidence knowing that this, like, everything I know at this point, of knowing there's people on Luke Air Force Base that are here to help, whether it be just process improvement or creating a new tool. Like, there are people, and the knowledge of that is just another resource for me to do or have. And then everything I learned at ALS, it just opened my eyes to start asking those questions. Every question we've talked about in this interview is a question that's gone through my head. And going back to my unit and my like place of work, basically, it's like I have the skills for others to ask those questions. And I also have the people, including yourself, that can answer them. So there's no, I guess there's no excuse at this point for me to go back to my unit and have things stay the way they were or stay the way they are, because I have the tools to cause questions to be asked, and I have the resources to answer them. And there's nothing else. There's no other part of that equation of change besides asking and answering.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Any final words for the audience?
No. Don't put me on the spot. You're making me nervous. No. I would say find your balance.
Would you offer other people to come here and talk innovation just as you have today and talk about your experience from ALS?
Oh, definitely. Everything I've said is what I've been through. And I can probably grab a classmate and they won't give you the same answers that I did. None of this is scripted for those listening.
No,
I can promise you.
100% just a real, organic conversation.
Yeah. So I can grab every classmate and you can get 10 episodes, 11 episodes, and we will all say different answers. So I 100% encourage anybody to come and just talk with the CI2 team. Even just walk in the room, because the atmosphere in this room makes you want to change something.
Yeah, I love working here. It's amazing. And we have such an open space for creativity and for innovative thoughts. So I want to thank you from the Fighter Country Innovation team. Thank you for coming here. And thank you for sharing your experience and your thoughts, because this is how we share our knowledge and continue increasing the innovation ecosystem.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I love being able to use my voice now and share my ideas and my experiences for others to learn.
Awesome. Thank you. That's a wrap for today's episode. Thank you for listening.